Let me now invite Mrs. Kärre, who's the counselor at the Embassy of Sweden. I understand that Sweden is actually on the top in terms of gender parity, in terms of the best work-life balance that it offers its citizens. So, Jose, please let us know what is the startup ecosystem looking like in your country and how probably we can learn some best practices from the startup culture in your country.
Yes. Well, good morning, Hyderabad. And my name is Josa Kärre. I'm a counselor of economic affairs in the Embassy of Sweden. So remember that everything I say is from a government perspective, and the answers that I can give, we consider from the government side to be the, what should I say, success factors on why Sweden comes out continuously, together with Finland, by the way, at the top of global innovation indexes year after year. And I think one key reason are the ones you're touching on gender equality and on work-life balance. I think those are important things that we from the government do to support business and entrepreneurship. And I think we see this in all levels of business. I mean, many of the Swedish global flagship companies that are present in India since a long, long time, and I could mention Ericsson or ABB or Alfa Laval or Atlas Copco, AstraZeneca, and a whole host of household names. They used to be innovative startups, many of them in the 19th century. And many of the reasons that they are successful are the same reasons that we see a set of extremely successful millennial unicorn companies coming out of Stockholm as a startup hub today. And there we can, we can look at the IT sector, we can look at fintech, at financial solutions, and other sectors as well. But I think many of the reasons that they are successful are the same. And one of them is actually that Stockholm is a global startup hub, but it's also quite a small city in global terms. It has 2 million people, which compared to Hyderabad or any Indian city is tiny. Which means that our companies have had to look to a global market from a very early stage, and to grow and be successful have had to look beyond their home market, almost from the start. And then when it comes to the government side, I think one of the key support systems that we have been giving is to invest in people, meaning to invest in education. One thing that struck me in the talks given earlier here this morning and that I think we have solved in Sweden to an extent by giving access to free education, is that you are no longer required in that way to fulfill the aspirations of your parents with your education. You can actually go out there and not take a job, but make your own job and give other people jobs without having the sort of requirements of your parents who paid for your education. So that's one thing. Another thing has to do with work-life balance, and so the government providing quality education for everyone is one success factor. Another has to do with work-life balance and gender equality, and investing in childcare, so also women are able to both to go into the workforce. Both women and men are actively encouraged to take responsibility for their children and take time off from work, be able to come back equally into the workplace as parents. And then I think all of these things together, in a sense, create an atmosphere where startup companies that offer a solution, they are certainly not all about products. A lot of them are about services or about the interface between product and service. So those are some key factors I'd like to start mentioning at least.
Thank you, Jose. And I should also mention, I remember going to Sweden about a decade back, and I visited a few companies to learn their HR practices when HR was not a great thing here in India. And I remember going to SKF, which is, I don't know, all of you engineering students must be knowing about the ball bearings. Yeah, so the SKF company was actually manufacturing these ball bearings. And you know what company came out of that SKF? Can anybody hazard a guess? So these ball bearings actually make rotation smoother. So one guy in that company thought about making a moving ball bearing, and he named it Volvo, and that's how the Volvo company came out of that. And I really was amazed at how corporates actually help in entrepreneurship through intrapreneurship. And believe me, madam, your nation is amazing in its HR policies, which actually create a better work system for its employees, create a better work-life balance, which is really essential, because that's what happens when all the women then drop off a few years into their career. Let me ask all the boys here, how many of you plan to be hands-on fathers when you become fathers? Not even one hand up, that's sad. Boys, that is really necessary. If you do not champion the cause, then no, your better halves are going to drop off sometime down the lane, and India will always remain at that sad 108 position, and nations like Sweden and Finland are always going to be the creators of innovation, of ideas, and they will lead the world. Do we want to be in that position? Yes, no? Yes, you want to be led by smaller companies? Smaller countries, because the madam just told that the population of her country is less than the population of maybe this entire area. I mean, half of Hyderabad is what I think. And if they are actually leading the world, then I think we really are being ineffective. And on that note, let me ask our next panel speaker, Mr. Jukka Holappa, who's the Commercial Counselor, Head of India at FinPro, and he's from Finland, another equally enchanting nation. And I'm sure the ecosystem for startups at your nation is really enabled by the government there. So let's listen from him what policies are being pushed by the government so that it actually enables world-class companies. Over to you.
Thanks, Mrs. Chairman. I will start by addressing two issues which to me are more important than policies. I have always been a hands-on working father. I have 3 kids with ages of 13, 12 and 5. And I have always supported my dear wife to have a career of her own. I think that really nothing makes me more sad if the huge capacity of Indian women is not capitalized. I calculated one day that I have recruited about 400 people in my life, not that many, but around 400 people. And out of top 10 best people I have ever recruited, 9 have been women, and 8 have been mothers. So I truly think that if a person can applause to all the women, all the mothers working. So I truly believe that it's actually possible to combine, to have a family and career. Of course, it's not that easy here in India. It's such a blessing that in Scandinavia it is easier. But believe me, it is possible, and it's so important. We need all of you. It's actually funny that all the girls are sitting in there, right? Boys are sitting on that side and on the back, and that's the girls section. So hi, I'm Jukka. I'm 41 years old. I work for the Finnish government. I have worked for the government for 8 months now. Before that, I used to be an entrepreneur. I have established 4 companies. I have invested small amounts of money to 7 companies. I have sat on the boards of 13 companies. So I'm somewhat like a startup geek, and that's a big passion to me, and it makes me a bit sad that now with the governmental positions I cannot do that too much, but I'm sure that I can come to T-Hub maybe once a week to do something with your companies to help them. I will give you the Finnish story, the Finland story, so nothing about politics. We have had somewhat more rough road compared to Sweden. I will start from the early 90s, so about 30 years ago. Finland was 15 minutes away from becoming a first Western country to be truly bankrupt in the modern days. So we were completely out of money early 90s. And one very bold and brave investment that the government made was to start very, very heavily investing into engineering education. So kind of engineering colleges and engineering universities started actually popping out everywhere. Finland is a smaller country than Sweden. It's a country of 5.5 million people, but we had tens of engineering colleges and universities. And then what happened was that Nokia boomed. You probably all at least know the name Nokia. In the history of mankind, there hasn't been a single company that had that big an effect on a country that Nokia had for Finland. Early this century, we were swimming in money, actually, in tax money that Nokia was bringing into the country. Again, early 90s, we were bankrupt. Early this century, we had so much money. And then what happened 2007, 2008, 2009, that this came, Apple almost killed Finland, because iPhone iPhone killed Nokia mobile phones, and then some people said that iPad killed the pulp and paper industry because nobody was reading the newspapers anymore. Suddenly, Finland was full of unemployed Nokia engineers, tens of thousands of excellent people, and we truly were kind of in misery that what on earth are we going to do with these engineers, and there's no more tax money coming out of Nokia. We are, after almost 10 years after that distress, we are starting to see positive effects on the Finnish economy, because those 10,000 unemployed Nokia engineers went and established new startups, went and worked for the new companies. So it took us kind of 10 years to now create the ecosystem, which is, I think that the startup ecosystem in Finland is a bit better than in Sweden. In many other ranks, Sweden is better, and they are more beautiful, and they have the royal family, etc., etc. But it took us 10 years, and now Finland is a true hub for startups, and that has also kind of brought multinational companies to Finland again to do R&D. So just a few examples. IBM is focusing the R&D on Watson, their artificial intelligence, on healthcare to Finland. GE is focusing their wireless R&D on healthcare in Finland. So that's also kind of creating the boost around the ecosystem. So kind of my first advice to you is that, hey, be patient. You have to be patient. It took Finland 10 years to get out of the last misery. Be patient. Can I have 2 more advices? My favorite advice that I'm always telling my wife and she gets angry. Don't do dumb shit. Do not watch Netflix 6 hours a day. Don't do dumb shit. That leads me to my third advice, that do good shit. Hustle, be active. Be active and be patient and you will do just well.
Thank you, Jukka. I think in the story that he told us or he shared with us, there's a lesson, a huge lesson, maybe two lessons to be learned. One is while Nokia was dominating the world those days, I think it fell into complacency. And while you're a leader, you should always understand complacency will not lead you anywhere. But on the other hand, the other lesson to be learned is having tasted failure, I think the entire country of Finland has reinvented itself and ensured that the country does not slide on its rankings in any of the parameters. So today, thanks to the policies of the government and all its progressive thinking individuals there, Finland is again back on the top of the chart. So there is a lesson for all of us to learn that one thing, though we are all thinking about the next best thing that India is going to be churning out is the skilled youngsters, we cannot afford to be complacent on that and reinvent ourselves and innovate ourselves to ensure that we reach that ladder and we do displace nations like Sweden and Finland so that who knows, when we have entrepreneurship summits in those countries, you will all be invited to come and speak about your experiences there. And on that note, I'd like to invite our last speaker for this panel discussion. And of course, the star of Hyderabad's Tea Hub, our very own Srinivas Kollipara. He is the founder and the CEO. Let us listen from him what his experience was in the last few years that Tea Hub's existence has come into Hyderabad. And I'm really privileged that Tea Hub has found its home in Hyderabad that actually allows all of you that gateway to entrepreneurship. So let's hear it from Srinivas.
Thank you. So first of all, we had a really tough task to follow the Telugu rapper.
I know.
Then, we've got this eminent panel with so much experience that it's hard to fit it all into one session. One thing I just want to bring it back to is just the opportunities that lie in India. We have a lot of lessons that we can learn from other countries. And in fact, the idea for Tea Hub itself was because I could see how much is going on globally, and yet not as much is going on here, and with the amount of opportunity that exists. So coming to the journey of Tea Hub itself, I won't go into Tea Hub, but I'll tell you what's changed since the time that we started it. The reason I started Tea Hub at all was just because there was so little happening. And so the initial part was just how do we build density? How do we get enough people working on startups? How do we get people to fund those startups? How do we get corporates involved who have challenges and get them to work with startups, etc.? I'm happy to say that today that the problem of density has happened. Six months after we started Tea Hub, Startup India was launched. Stand Up India, Make in India, all under the Invest India banner. And so startups went from being something that were very dangerous and no parent wanted their child to do, to being something that was acceptable. That was also helped, of course, by success stories that we had locally, Flipkart, Ola. We all know how much money the founders made, and that helps parents to think that maybe this is okay. But the problem was that initially the first set of startups that we have are all people that are copying Western models. And that's fine. Initially, that's probably what's needed. But that's not addressing the opportunity that the country itself has. Unlike Finland and Sweden, which are very small countries and have to think global, we actually have a local opportunity. There are so many challenges and problems that we have in India that are not being solved globally because they don't exist globally. So the question that you have to look at is, are there problems around you that you could help to solve? Are there problems that are generic to people across the whole of the country? Because we have, as we said, probably the population of Hyderabad is the combined population of both countries. In India, 1.3 billion people. That is a huge number. the people online today in India is the population of the entire United States. This is an opportunity that is unique and is untapped today. So look around and see what can you do that could impact us. So that's one track. The other track is, can you look at problems today that could be global and build out for a global solution today? But you have to be clear which one it is. If you try and mix them both, it's probably not going to happen very well. You have the benefit of Startup India, as we mentioned. One correction that I did want to make on what Vanitha said, which is Startup India is neutral of gender. It actually does apply to both men and women. But there are separate policies to help women entrepreneurs that exist within Stand Up India, because there definitely is a bias against women in the country, and that it is much, much harder for women to come up. Having said that, the other thing that I would say, I come from an entrepreneur background. Don't look to the government to help you to survive. If there are incentives that you can take advantage of, sure, do that. But your business model, your startup, better be able to stand on its own 2 feet without the government's support. The government is there only to support, not to help you run your company. And I see too many people thinking that the government will help them solve their problems. Or even T-Hub, they'll come and say, what can T-Hub do for me? And my question to you is, what do you need? It better be something very, very specific. And you better have done as much work as possible to make it happen, because nobody's helping you if you don't help yourself. So I think on that note, I'll leave it in terms of the differences between the countries. But if there are any questions, I'm available later for that. I don't know if we have any time for question answers. So, thank you. If you have any questions for us, please feel free to ask.
Thank you, Srinivasa. That was a very a good description of what to expect from the government, and he told us in no mean terms that is the last resort that we have to look as entrepreneurs. So if we are looking to become an entrepreneur, government's interference or support is one of the last things that we need to look into. The main part that we need to look into is there an unmet need in the market, whether in terms of a product or a service, and whether we can actually get into that gap and then approach and then address that that product or that service for the market. So let me ask one question before we close this panel discussion. How many among you, the students sitting here, want to become entrepreneurs? Are you just putting it up because I asked a question? Okay, so all those who want to become entrepreneurs, do you have an idea with you currently? All those who have an idea currently, please put up your hands. Okay, so that's good. That means that you have to start thinking early. And this is not a degree or a piece of paper that one gets as soon as you finish your academic education, that yes, this is what I'm thinking and this is what I need to do. If you want to become an entrepreneur, that should be part of your DNA, and it should start from a very, very, very young age. And you have to be connected to the entire world. You have to understand what the market needs today, whether it may be an unmet product or an unmet service. Are you going to join that, get into that gap to address the market? And that is what you will have to understand, that a summit like this will only show you different ways and means. It will expose you to different people here, different thought processes, different ideas, and different ways to actually bring out your unmet, your idea to actually address that unmet need in the market. So please make use of this summit, make use of all the networking opportunities that this summit will provide you. They have an excellent lineup of speakers post this session. And of course, all the participants on this panel discussion are available to all of you, either through their emails or maybe they will spend some time with all of you. So girls and boys, take up this opportunity. You may not get this opportunity again in your lifetime, especially when a college like yours is actually opening the doors and bringing experts to your own doorstep. You should make this opportunity the best. And with that, I'd like to
Vanitha, could I just add one more thing?
Sure. One, probably one piece of last advice from each of the speakers, and we'll close on that. Go ahead, Srinivas.
So first of all, my job actually is to say things that nobody wants to hear, right? My job is not to be popular. My job is not to be liked. And that's very similar to entrepreneurship. One of the things I just want to address is the fact that right now startups are cool. Being an entrepreneur sounds like it's a glamorous thing to do. I'm here to tell you it's not. It is the hardest thing you can do. It's hard, it's lonely, nobody will understand the journey that you're on, everybody will try and dissuade you. If you're not crystal clear that this is what you want to do, you shouldn't be doing it. The second thing is, the lonely path. Actually, the Telugu rapper himself said it, right? Basically that everybody has their own path and you need to find yours and follow it. He made it sound glamorous. It's not. Again, people will laugh at you for taking the journey that you take. When I started T-Hub, everybody told me I was crazy. Today, it's easy to get caught up in the glamour and for everybody to say, oh, great job and all that. It's not an easy path, and I'm not saying it to glorify what I did either. I'm telling you, unless you are really convinced that this is what you want to do not do it. My job is actually to dissuade you from doing entrepreneurship unless you have a burning desire and you know this is a big opportunity out there. The second piece, or the third piece, and the final one is, do your homework. I have enough people that come to me saying, I've got an idea. They tell me the idea and I tell them, how many people are doing this? They say, no one. I say, I spoke to 5 last week. If you don't know who else is out there doing it, you're going to fail. It doesn't mean that if someone's doing it, you can't do it. You can. But you'd better know what everyone else is doing and why you're different from them or what you'll do different from them. Again, if you can't articulate that, if you're not crystal clear how you are better or different than them, it's not going to work out. So do your homework. Having said that, if you meet all of those criteria, good luck to you and we're here to support you.
Thank you, Srinivas. He basically says passion is a must and you have to add a lot of resilience with it. So these are the 2 key takeaways from his message. Over to Jukka.
I think I would like to say 10 things. As my wife always tells me that I love my voice, I shouldn't speak. I shouldn't be given a mic. Couple of advices. First thing, I think the biggest reason why you shouldn't do much stuff with the government, because it slows you down. And nowadays, the life cycles of companies, of products, of everything are so short. I love the saying that the Russians have. They say that you have to find a nipple. And when you find the right nipple, suck it a lot. So that's the reason why not to work with the government. It slows you down. Another thing is that it's never too late to start up your company. I have kind of like the feeling in Finland, because there's the startup boom, etc., that many people, students like you in a university, they are starting to stress that, oh my God, I have to start up a company. I have no idea what the idea is. Don't stress on that. I think it's also totally okay that after you graduate, you go into the corporate world and learn stuff for a few years. And then when you are 25, when you are 30, when you are 35, even when you are 70, you can start up a company. It's never too late.
Thank you, Jukka. I think he made a key observation. I don't know what the statistics are, but they're pretty depressing. But if you look at every 100 people who actually go out there and start their entrepreneurial journey, I think less than 5% of them actually succeed. So you do have 95% of them failing. And they fail for a variety of reasons. They might have the resilience, they might have the passion, but probably the timing may not be correct. But that also leaves us, if you have a dream, do continue on that dream. Maybe the timing may not be correct at that point of time, but as you age and as you gain more experience in the corporate world, you might be able to revisit your entrepreneurial idea at some point of time and then get on to that success. So that's what Jukka has just shared with us. And let me ask Jose to share her last thoughts with us.
Just the last few reflections on, and back to the role of government, which I think is an interesting one in this, because as we've been touching on from, I think, all of us, the role of government is not to do business. The role of government is to give basic services to their citizens. And the needs that entrepreneurs have are not so different from the needs of all other citizens. I was talking about basic education, work-life balance. I'll give 2 other examples of things that I think have been important that the Swedish government has done. And one was when we rolled out 3G, which is a Swedish invention, by the way. We did not grant that in procurement to the lowest bidder. We looked at the companies who gave the best coverage across the whole country, so ensuring that service also in remote and rural areas, for instance. Another thing that my government did, which I think has played an important role in creating an IT startup scene, was to ensure basic computer literacy from a young age. Subsidizing home computers and internet connections already in the 90s. So again, ensuring basic services for everyone. Then that gives people the tools and the opportunities to do business. Government can also play a role in driving innovation by identifying, we see some examples of that, by identifying needs, but that's more driving the innovation power of our large companies, of the Ericssons and the likes. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Josa. And what she made a very relevant remark is government can actually act as an enabler and create an ecosystem. And that's what's exactly happening today in Telangana, as well as in the entire India, where we have a lot of building blocks in terms of policies that are being created to enable people like you to become entrepreneurs. So please make use of that opportunity. But again, as Mr. Jukka said, it does not have to be the only option for you. So out there, the young girls and boys who had an idea and who raised their hands out, please make sure that you do tap onto this opportunity to ensure that you might have a dig at this entrepreneurial journey. And let me finally close it with Mr. Karma Yeshi's few words of advice to all of you.
Actually, if you look at US, the financial is ruled by few Jewish people. If you look at Mumbai, it's ruled by few Parsis. Why it matters? The hard work, determination. So we need to work very hard to become a successful community. So like that, when Mr. Srinivas said, don't take the help of government, I little disagree, because you should know how, when, how to take the help of government. You shouldn't say no to, because in the end, the government, whatever government, whichever party, it's elected by the public. So we had elected the government, but you should be clever enough to when and how to take the help of the government. And in the end, it is your own hard work, it's your own determination, it's your own commitment which leads you to. And in my department also, the Tibetan Women's Empowerment Desk is under me. In the Tibetan community, although our administration is very, very small, but still 40% of the Central Tibetan administration's employees are women. Likewise, in the field, many our women are doing fairly good. In the business also, Tibetan women are leading. But again, we thought there is such a need of help for them. That is why this Tibetan Women's Empowerment Desk was created under my department a few years back. For that, I think, and what I'm going to say, once again, you have to be committed, you have to be hardworking, you have to be clear in your idea, then lead it, then take the help of government. Definitely, I'm sure that you all will become successful. So with this, once again, would like to thank everybody for inviting me here.
Thank you, Mr. Karma Yeshi, and thank you, Srinivasa, thank you, Jukka, thank you, Josa. It was a wonderful discussion, and I hope all of you have got some key takeaways from this panel discussion. Yes or no? So in a few years' time, I'm sure Mr. Mari Lakshman Reddy will again invite a few entrepreneurs from you sitting there, and I'd like to see this entire dais filled equally with both boys and girls, and out here talking to the next generation. And that will be your service to such a beautiful institution that you have. So please make the best use of this summit, interact with people, network, take a lot of ideas, and ensure that you do listen to all of them and take their advice. All my best to all of you, and thank you so much for inviting us over.